usually we have seen many times many people and also many curatorial programs thinking about how to talk critically or think critically and act rather not so critically. Unfortunately, this is something we have seen a lot, and also I guess something not only we have experienced, but maybe we have contributed to a lot ourselves. Because the field in which we are is a field that credits critical thinking, but not very much critical acting. Like the critical practice itself, especially when it is about directing institutions, it's maybe happening more and more, and some of our guests will have brought it up. But for me, Laurence Russell is someone who really, during all her life, as a feminist, as a cultural actor, as a creator, and especially as a director, has worked hard on a possible practice that would be up to the critical thought. So I met you, Laurence, when you were the director of the Fundación Tapies in Barcelona, and this was what you have done there was remarkable on two sides. On the one hand, because you established a very consistent program of what I would call post-representational curatorial strategies. You found a way to define with each curatorial project anew the institution as a place of radical hospitality. And there is already the other side. So also as a director, you really thought this as a place as a collaborative place, as a place of encounter, as much as for the people you work with, as for the people who are coming to the institution. So now you are the director of an art school, École de Recherche Graphique, École Supérieure des Arts in Brussels, and we are very much looking forward to hearing you speaking about institutions, how you see them, and how we can think them differently and try to act up to that.
So thank you, Nora. So let's begin. So the first thing I want to say is where I'm talking from. Because obviously the position I have towards institutions is influenced, marked, contaminated, polluted by where I'm talking from and where I'm born from. Because you can see I'm white, I'm identified as female. I guess you identify me like that. I'm born and educated in Belgium. I will turn 50 soon, so that gives you also a moment of time, because time changed. So I could go to school, I could have access to social security, to health system. I could decide to leave on my own decision, to leave my hometown, to go to a city, to study art school. I could benefit from unemployment money, teaching jobs, and also what was happening in the public funding for small or big institutions in Belgium at that time. So, and the 90s, if you want tomorrow we can, because what was the conditions of work, of rent, of labor, of unemployment money, social security, allows me to take some decisions about my professional life. Because if you are not, every context is important. So this is also where I believe this desire, trust into public institution, meaning that it's public good or public commons, or the taxes will be used for a common goods. So I was raised by my parents, my family, towards that kind of, the institution will take care of you somehow. The taxes, we pay a lot of taxes in Belgium, and we did believe it was used for the benefit of everyone. So till now, this part of my life, I still try to work within public institution. And I did believe that public institution is the place for the most experimental, risky possibilities of work and action. I don't know if it's still correct, but I'm still trying. This is my last stint now in the school, because we will see the transformation of the public money or the collaboration with private and public money. I'm not against using private money or public money, but how it is filtrated by certain politics of success, achievement, aesthetics can influence the way you can work. I mean, the freedom I give to myself is also depending on certain constraints, that I accept some of the limits and possibility within what is called public institutions. Is that okay? Okay. So this is, because otherwise, yeah, it's important to define this partial subjectivity that you encounter in me, because I'm, as I say, a product of circumstances, politically, socially, economically, and culturally. So I will go through 3 phases, because I've worked at different levels in different institutions, but I will take, I guess, the one where I could have the position or the function of directing or helping or collaborating to the direction of the institution. So the first institution I want to talk to you about is Constant. Is a non-profit organization based in Brussels, dealing with art and new media. So this will be from 1997 to 2008. And I think it's important also the date, because it was before the so-called social networks, before the so-called smartphones. It's funny the name we give to, a smartphone, whatever. So it was also a moment you will see technologically marked by the possibility that the price of the computers will allow us, the software was accessible. So the end of the 90s, and also in terms of social possibilities in Belgium, that was it was the beginning of the status for artists, or there was some funding for small institutions. Again, it's the circumstances that allowed us to do certain things. So Constant was a non-profit organization, still running, non-profit organization based, as I say, in Brussels, and it was mostly worked with artists. So artists, like working with sound, video, typography, painting. I mean, people who gather together around a question that was how the so-called, and it's still called like this, I guess, new media was affecting the way we were creating, the way the work was shown, the way the work was distributed, the way we as a person could circulate, or how our private data were used. I mean, how the technique and the technology and the so-called new media was transforming our way to work. So we were asking those questions publicly, like organizing exhibitions, productions, workshops. So the idea where the word and the strategies or the actions that I will put that will define Constant between those years is about interstices, it's about feminism, and it's about open source and free licenses. So this was some action. So it was something that will create a movement, something that will happen. So if I use, for example, the word interstice, it's because Constant at that time had no space. There was an office that was used by as many people, a project we could fit in 2 stores place. So they will have people working on documentary cinema, Super 8, music producer, making movie. So Constant dealing with art and new media, and what else? Some people doing radio. So all the people could fit inside will do and work inside. But Constant has no space, like meaning no exhibition space or no workshop space. So the idea was that to do something that could take more than, because when I took the office is smaller than here. So that we could gather more than 5 people, we need to be in another space. So we need always to be in conversation, in interaction, in negotiation with that other space. And that other space can be a library, can be a squat, can be a museum, can be a school, so the film museum. So every time we were asking questions in public or wanting to educate ourselves, bringing artists, theoreticians about, as I say, art and new media, or the condition of life, I would say, with or in dialogue with technology, we will have to be inside someone else's space. So because the fact that we were working inside another space make us also question our position in that space. But really, that was the idea of making tangible, physical, almost, I mean, I've written or thought somewhere as that we have never talked so much than with a computer. I mean, all what you have to physically engage with the space, the technology, the people, to work with, to think with, because, for example, the fact that and it's still something, I don't know if you work on it, but it's still some kind of challenging to show internet art in a museum or CD-ROM you don't remember, you are too young for that, but or an installation or cinema. I mean, all what was done as art is with media, it should question the museum, the exhibition space itself. The fact also it can be distributed, it can be accessible from other space. So those questions that we accompany bringing artists and knowledge inside institutions. So so as I say, the technology was a way to activate relationships, but one of the things was to be working with. I mean, we are all dependent of each other. We don't exist without the relationships or the dependency with each other, but we were making this tangible, physically tangible. I mean, the computer, the cable, the people. I mean, cooking was part of the important also. So building, cooking, talking. That was mainly one of the work of Constant. So we also put ourselves physically in between, as I say, in between institutions, or in between individuals who are not talking to each other, not because they don't like each other, but because an artist talking to a programmers, or someone working in a training center for women into technology, and someone making a PhD on technology. So we were using Constant as an interface and a mediation between people, between institutions. So physically, we were there, the machine, and we were there. Making tangible the relationship between, let's say, artists and institutions, or programmers and an artist, or institution, that was part of one of the strategy. Something that was important and transformative for us is the free and open source software and license. Again, so in the 90s, at the end of the 90s, that was the case of Napster. You know that Napster was a platform of exchange of files, and was shut down. It was also the moment that a lot of artists were creating, and it's not new, TV programs, cinema, film, music. So the fact that the computers, as I say, was arriving at a level of low cost and also easy way of the software brought, or we were ignored till the 90s, but then in the 90s we discovered that a lot of artists like us were using the possibilities, and we cannot say now how increases the distribution, the production, the critique of those artworks or works that are produced by using new media. So free and open source software was do I have to explain, or more or less not? What is interesting about free and open source software is that it's free and open source because it's published under a license. And the license is a contract between you, as creator or programmer, and the users. So you tell the users what she can do or what she cannot do. So what the possible use she can make with that software, that product. And so with the free and open source license, that's, so this computer is working with open source software. So it's a license or a contract that give you freedom. So it's based on author right. So you should be the author of the work to put your work under a free license. Now there is a free license that's usually known as Creative Commons. So the idea of producing commons good under a free license, but you have to be the author of the work to say this work or that my text will be distributed. I mean, I give it to Noah, but I can put a free license on it that said that you can. So I give you here the example of the software. So you can run the program, you can study how the program works, so you can open the source code, and you can modify the program if you need it, and you can distribute it, the modification under the same license. So that means that you can improve. So it's something also that's interesting, because when you say I agree, you agree not to do all of this. That you cannot open the software, you cannot transform it, you cannot use for any purpose. Because what is interesting also with the free license is that you cannot prohibit your enemy to use your work. You can use your moral right, but not the right of, for example, free and open source software is used by the police, by some governments, so even by a so-called social network that I won't name. So it's something that it's there to proliferate and to be improved. So the fact of using, as I say, you have to be the author to put a free license. That means that all the work that I mentioned that was reusing some other people's work cannot be put on the free license, because sometimes you need to hack a program, sometimes you need to pirate a movie, because this is what you do with your work. But sometimes it's good also to say, no, I give my text, I give my work, I give this movie that, I don't know if it's called a movie, that documentation that we are making today, but someone asked me, does it make any sense now to speak about free license and free license contract in a moment where people can download and do whatever they want? I say yes, because it's something that makes visible the contract between you and me. For example, Bea say, do you agree that we film you? And I say yes, on the conditions that it should be published under a free license. That means that the people will have the right to copy it, distribute it, to edit it, and if you can improve it, better. So the fact that or if you're writing a text, or if you give or publish a picture, or I don't know, I mean, all in your practice or in science, I mean, as you're coming from different, if you say this is under free license, you will see, because for example, some of academic publication refuse the free license. They want to close the thing, not to open it. So the fact that for us to use the free license, this was the base to say every software that it's important that you can discuss the tools of creations that you're using as an artist, because most of the software suite that people use to produce images, for example, is one big company. And this is determining also the kinds of aesthetics. I mean, to be able to open the tools of production that you're using as an artist, or as a scientist, or as a programmer, this is something important to be, I think, to be maintained and used. So Constant now, as I say, is 20 years after, is still there, and so they're working a lot on free and open source software for designers, publications, video editing. So also the question of surveillance. So the fact of really be engaged with the development of the tools is something important. But again, as my level of institution, for example, one of the fact of using free license in a museum. This is something I will bring to the Fondation Antoine Tapies, for example, that what is produced with public money should be returned in the public goods and commons. This is something that that was discussed with the team of the Fondation, that whatever they published it under the license they want. But they were choosing of Creative Commons because the idea is also that if they leave the institution, they leave. I mean, the right is there, is open to be used. So another, it's coming back on fashion, but feminism was not always like in big on T-shirts and in big letters behind pop star. So feminism for us, so how I use it, because I can also ask you, do you remember the day you became a feminist? For each of us, it's a special moment, it's a special tool, it's a methodology. So the way I use or I embody or I can act as a feminist is specific to, I know, I guess you've seen till now that I have no theory, it's practice, okay, what I'm doing here. So feminism was a question, as a method to ask always who, what, for whom, in which conditions. Whatever, if you're identified as a woman or no, or how your sexuality is driven. This is not, I mean, it's important, for example, when suddenly in a list of, for example, in France, that they have name researcher for center and there are only men in the jury, only men chosen. So then you say, you identify men, women, you count and you make a remark. I always say, I always, also with the teachers now, when they choose someone is ill, so someone should come in, or someone is tired, and they can choose someone to come in. And after 3 men, I say, there is only men here, and they look at you like, I didn't realize. So some moment you have to put okay, it's a cis man, okay, it's a cis woman, but I mean, unfortunately, it's still useful. So, but as a practice, again, it was always to question, never take anything for granted, never take anything as natural. So, like to be an author, this is not natural. I mean, hello. I mean, we didn't have a soul. Do you remember? We couldn't vote, we couldn't work, we couldn't inherit. So if you go back to Virginia Woolf, we can have access to certain place. So to be an author, this is not, I mean, we don't have anything natural. We had to fight for, acquire some rights. So it's important to, again, to make this, this path physically, it's a space of negotiation. So we can use that space again and again. So feminism was, so the contingency, the context, how can we work? How do we work? Is it sustainable to, especially in the cultural field, that some research made that for example, in England, that the people working on the really bad condition, the worst of them are cultural actors. I mean, in institutions, it's very, very glamorous, but you cannot pay rent in London. So the self-exploitation for the love of it, so the love of it can be family, it can be free software, it can be art, no? What we are ready to do to make it happen. So with Constant, what we did, and we'll switch to another time, but it's so-called internal kitchen that we asked to our colleagues, the people we are meeting, okay, how do you do? How do you make a living? How much is your rent? How many people do you have to take care of? Because the dependency, codependency, and if you have to be paid for a lecture or for being a curator, how much? How does it work? So this was part of our process. I have this problem, I have tendency to take literally stuff. I did believe in cyberfeminism. I did believe that it was, that machine is us, our processing, an aspect of our embodiment. So I really don't take the machine as an enemy, but as a possibility. So the connection between authorship, feminism, and machine was always part of our our practice. What we did the first time was to translate text into French and Dutch about cyberfeminism. We did also like one workshop where we were together working with computers, like to make music, to make video. I mean, to say, okay, let's teach each other, let's transfer knowledge and so on and so forth. So that was one of the meeting. Obviously, we realized that when we did this first cyber feminist working days, there were only people like us. Us at that time, that was people coming from the art practice and coming almost certain neighborhoods of the city. So as I say, I did believe, so we had a problem. So what we did is to work with a training center for women into technology. And so together to work as on the simple question, say, how do you work? So the idea was to bring all those people and women working with computers. So they could be working in a supermarket or a factory or being on the radio. They were all using a computer. This was the project of a feminist server, like a feminist house, a women's house, women's server. So we did try to work all together, like expand the possibilities, but it was difficult because of, for example, we installed a Linux, so a free software exploitation system, operating system. In French is a système d'exploitation, so like what is driving your computer. So this was the easy joke, like we have to be able to open our exploitation system and transform it and study it. But in English, it's not operating system, it's not working that well. So, for example, we installed a free software computer room in the school, in the training center, but it was at night, because the people working on free software, they're working freely because they love it at night. But at night, the women who were in the training center, they should be with their kids or cooking home. So there was a problem of temporality of meeting. Also the fact of displacing oneself in the city. That was not so easy to encounter common space and common time, except when there was an event. And so this was my, it was great, everything you want, but my own sense of failure, it was that it was exceptional. It was exceptional that we could meet all together and work together, because we had to take time outside of the normal circuit, or to take time or space or routes outside of certain routine and rhythm of that. But I mean, some connection is still there, and so we did what was called the Samedi. So we did organize around this feminist server. Now they're more into geek stuff, but the idea was to organize babysitting, cooking, so to try to recreate a space possible of meeting. So 2008, 2015, I'm directing the Fundación Antoni Tàpies in Barcelona. So you can ask, or maybe not tonight, but how the hell a cyber feminist became the director of a museum? It happened. But so the words that I would put on the table for that period of time, and so also I put the dates because if you remember 2008, that's one of the so-called crises that began also in terms of funding and what expected from institution. But that was the background context. Nevertheless, I arrived there. So as Nora said, my question and the fact that what am I doing here? This is something that now I can quote someone who said that, but at that time I didn't know that a lot of people said it, but Jean Houry, in the context of institutional psychotherapy, mentioned it clearly. The first question is to ask, what are we doing here? So the fact of entering an institution is, what is this institution? And also, how can we, in fact, the desire to be interacting with the institution and to be in conversation with the institution, that's something that I was bringing with me. As I said, the open source, the fact that you can study the system, transform it, and distribute the modification. how do we do that in institutional level of the feminist practice of asking who, what, and which condition and what for? How can we ask this to an institution? So I took something that I read when I was reading about cyberfeminism. It's Rosanna Luker-Stone in The War of Desire and Technology at Close of Mechanical Age. It's something that was always with me. I have a backpack with, it's not certainties, it's tools, it's a toolbox of, okay, what am I doing here? Okay, feminism, open source, and in the definition of interaction or participation. Because this is something to interact with the institution, what does it mean? Or to interact with the exhibition space. If it's to say, the painting you like the best, thank you, for me this is not participation. Or to comment on something, this is not a conversation. So, and also with new media work, you have also this, yes, it's interactive, yeah, you can say hello to the camera and you have the software saying hello in the set. This was for me not the definition of interaction or participation. This idea of something like a conversation, like for example, we don't have here now, that when you talk to someone, you have a conversation, or you play with someone when you're a kid, the transformation of the conversation is driven by what? The fact that you see the face, you can interrupt, you can move, and now we do that. I mean, when you play, let's do that, let's play this. No, but let's move to that. So this idea of play and conversation, that's for me the ideal of how to enter in dialogue with an institution. And it's true that this is something preparing the lecture that I was to work collectively. It's beautifully said by Nora, but I didn't manage it in the Fondation Anthony Tapies. Even if we put at one moment we changed the management and we were discussing together the future, but it didn't work really that way. What was working collectively, it's true, is the fact of hospitality. This is something that comes from Digital, which was the name of the event we were doing, a training center for women into technology. We invited several mailing lists. Irina Ristakova, she came to Brussels and she was working on the notion of hospitality. And it's an interesting definition that also can put you in a non-comfort zone. To think is this idea of welcoming, being discreet, knowing how the home is. I mean, it's a home for you and you try to make people being at home also. But what does it mean to be at home? For example, the hospitality would be that you explain with how is the coffee machine working, where are the toilets, or how I can use the house. No, you explain how the house. So the idea of hostess can be something that is underestimated, but this is something that I take with me. This idea of to welcome people. This is so an hostess is not a guard, and not a guide. This is something. This is another function somehow, and so this name hostess were taken by. People working in different exhibitions, like the Alan Capro exhibition or the React Feminism. So people were welcoming audience and explain how it works, but not giving a guided tour or not surveilling the people. That was something else. So the people who men and women who were working as hostess, I mean, it was not said. We didn't hire hostess, but we were working together of this definition of their work. How they can welcome the people, explain how it works, but not not telling them what to think. So one way that we try to open the institution for conversation, and a conversation, it was also to understand how the institution work, how do we work, what did we learn, or how did it work? So what is this institution? What are we doing here? What's with that? So the Fondation Anthony Tapies, I won't enter into detail, but it's a private foundation created by an artist and his family, and partly funded by public money. So it was, when I was hired, the idea was to say, okay, it's a private institution, but with a public mission. So that was this idea. So and Nora can tell because she saw about that. The idea was to open, one way to open the source code was to open the archive. And to open the archive, meaning that an archive is all the documents that are generated by the mere fact of the existence of that action of that person. For example, the fact that I'm invited here generates paper, I guess. Yes, emails, I mean, they're not paper, but invoice, train, plane ticket. So we could have, and this thing happening, so, or my text, so we could have the archive of this lecture tonight. That's an archive. And so imagine in 20 years how interesting, maybe, to know what was the fee at that time, or they were still playing. Do you remember? They were playing in 2017. So to open this to the public and to say, how did we work? So the fictional, because science fiction is a big thing also, but this I didn't bring anything about it. It's to imagine that this institution will disappear. What would be left over? What can we transmit? So you can say, okay, they are the artworks, but also how did we work? For example, how this exhibition were done. So it's like giving the cookbooks and the tools and to say, okay, take this, and with this you can reinvent, if we use a Capro term, we can reinvent that exhibition, or not. The basic stuff is like some people came for Anna Mendieta or recently Lydia Clark to say how was it done. And legally, the archive can also only be all what is contract-based, like an invoice or contract. You don't keep the scribblings of the technicians or the list of shopping that you need to do an Anna Mendieta piece. But this is what people come to see, how it was done. And so we kept all of this, and all of this was, because we could have given all the legal archive to some institution, but the idea was to keep that and to make it open, and also to classify it in a way that we could see every person that have worked on this project. So imagine you could have access to how it was done, how much it cost, or what was the political and social context, because also you have the press clipping and so on and so forth. We were not so happy about this drawing because the Fondation is still in the center. No, it's watering everything. Meanwhile, it's a continuous circulation of knowledge and possibilities. So the idea was really but that was an example. We would imagine that these protocols of exchange based on the archive would be a model of possibility to work with other institutions or in between institutions, that the knowledge produced could be open, distributed, modified, transformed, and so on and so forth. So some of the example was that we invited people to work directly on the archive and to reintroduce the archive inside the museum in a way or another. So I can tell you that was also created frictions, because this is not art. So the fact also that, for example, students from an art school came, 100 students, 100 document, and they have to retrace the origin of this document. Some documents was an invoice. Is this art? Well, it's part of it. Or what constitutes the possibility of this object, of this moment being called art, need a lot of administration, paperwork, knowledge that could be accessible and visible from someone who was opening the box. So the someone were individuals, were associations, schools, teachers. I mean, the idea was really to, we invite people to work with that. Meanwhile, digitally it was supposed to be online, and also some of the documents were under free license, some of them not, some were not accessible because the artist says so. So this is one work, or someone took the agenda of one of the curator or conservator producer and display the agenda totally for one project in all the meetings, all the stuff she had to do. This is another example that obviously when you have a collection, the art object is there. Because there was also but everything is accessible. No, the object is there. But then the picture of the object is elsewhere. There was the official picture of a painting. It changed every 20 years. I mean, at one point it was black and white, and then at one point it was this analogical film, and then at one point it was digital. So the official can, when it's not official anymore, can be redistributed. So this is also the fact of having a painting in a collection generates a lot of document. Restoration, checking the state of it, the texts that are written. So the idea was to also see or give the conversation possible with an artwork other than art history or aesthetics. It was also the physical condition, weights, travels. So this was a work with teachers who they did an exhibition in the Fondation when you have the painting and what you can learn with the life of the painting in the institution. So it was another guided tour elsewhere than the art history and version of it. The idea to open the archive was first to understand what we are, how do we work, to make people enter in conversation about how do we work, what we are doing there in this public institution landscape, but also we realized that the fact of doing that was also, it was not a model, but an invitation, or was taken as an invitation by some groups to look at their archive. It was this catalyzer or like a laboratory, you put something and something else happened, you know, some big invention arrived because the window was open by accident. So the fact that we just provoke a possibility of questioning the institution itself, make them question their institution, whatever level it can be. That work is by an artist. I mean, it's a sound piece, but it's also the fact that the artists interact with the archive. Because, for example, in the archive we realized that the cleaning team was not in the archive of the exhibition. It was part of the archive of the administration because they were part of the people who have settled contracts for all the year, every day. So it's not something exceptional that is part of the budget of the exhibition. So it was in another archive. So what she did, I mean, you cannot transform the archive, but she had a layer which she marked the day that, for example, for that exhibition of Tapies or that exhibition on James Coleman or whatever, the cleaning team was there that day. So she brought together the agenda of the cleaning team and the agenda of the conservator or curator. So she had that layer in the archive. And what she did also was to make an interview with them and their memories of their memories of the exhibition, what was complicated to clean or not clean, and what they like, and so on and so forth. And so this is artists working directly with the archive. So that was the place of archiving. So now is the moment I have to tell you that this is not existing anymore. I mean, it's not used anymore like this. So something that you can do with an institution can be just changed by the following director. So it's so that space is used for something else now, and they moved somewhere else. I don't know. And also the digital process, because this is something. Also the fact that you're working on digitalizing, it's a lot of human force. This is not something that happened by the night. So it's a wishful thinking. We do a lot, and this is how so many institutions fall for some big company to do it at their place. Okay, digitalize me that collection. Okay, fine, because it needs a lot of work, sustainable work. So what we did in the Fondation was really to move from, there was the digitalizing process all the time, and most of the documents are digitalized. This is not the problem. The problem is to tag them. The problem is to define the license, to organize it. So this was the the big thing. But so the idea was really to go out and make people use immediately the archive. So I quit. I left the Fondation Tony Tapies, and one of the questions that occupied me at that moment is not directly connected with that institution so specifically, but more the fact that as I was director of a contemporary art museum and cultural center, I could have access to different institutions of different level, and so I was concerned by the fact that, as I said, the pressure that we were living, I mean, again, not especially the Fondation, but in general, and talking to my colleagues at that time, under the pressure of nationalism. I mean, from the left or from the right, this is the worst case scenario. I mean, nationalism does not help people to be smarter. I don't know about the phone, but it's closing doors and not especially opening. I mean, that was my experience. And the fact also that public money was also influenced by the fact that we have to be efficient. I mean, institutions have to, if you receive public money, you have to be successful. Successful in terms of numbers, number of people, number of friends in the so-called social network. So the pressure is there to be, how can I say that, to be dependent. I mean, you have to prove that you use well the public money. And how you can prove it is not by the quality of the relation you establish. I mean, we don't put chip inside and see happiness. I mean, now they measure happiness or empowerment. The empowerment level is, we don't know. So how can we prove that we use correctly public money? And how they make that, they want to have proof. And the proof that's coming up again and again is about numbers. Numbers not only in terms of people, but also about the number of money that you can find to finance your research. I mean, what's happening in the university, your art, this exhibition, even if you are inside institution, mostly the private one, but also the public one, you have to find money. This is part of what we have to do. And I'm not saying that we don't have to do that, but we have to see how it affects the way you work. Because if that money is coming from that company that doesn't like or want that result, consciously or unconsciously, it must have some effect on you. But again, I'm not saying it's bad, but I want to see and understand how it works. And also, there was a moment, you know, you have, I don't know if it's a moment you don't sleep well and you connect stuff, and I was concerned because some of the colleagues were really like, for not depending on the extreme right money coming from public policy, they were trying to find private money. And one way of finding private money, and that's something that was also discussed in the Fondation, is to how can we sell creativity to enterprise? You know, to have like those moments of come to the museum and you will meet the unexpected, and you will increase your creativity, come with your managers. I mean, this is something that is done, or bring your fare of cars or of mobiles or whatever. Use the museum to sell smartphone. I mean, that was something that was there and used all the time to maintain these institutions. I'm not saying it's bad, but when you discuss this with curators of big institutions or people, there is no, and this is a common sentence, there is no alternative. So for me, that was really troubling to say, really, we can't find another way of surviving than marketing the knowledge by bits and pieces, or by transforming every moment in a shopping mall. Really, there is no other way. So when I left Barcelona, I began to study. It's a postgraduate institutional psychotherapy. So the basic principle is if you want to take care of the people, you have to take care of the institution. Everything matters. It's funny when you enter here, downstairs, I say, wow, it's an art school like mine, with graffiti and stuff. And you take the lift and you arrive to a startup. It's like, it's funny. I mean, this change, physical change, the smell. So what kind of work you can do? I mean, this isn't how it influenced the way. Maybe if you were downstairs, I don't know, in a place or in a classical lecture room or without the tables, that we can be closer. So everything matters somehow. So just to explain quickly, but because yes, Jean-Henri was part of it, but one of the first to bring it in France was Frances Toscaès. One of the good things about Catalonia, Frances Toscaès was a psychiatrist who were active during the Spanish War. He was creating a group of care of the soldiers, and this group of care were made, it's not the right term, were constituted by a nurse, nuns, sex workers, artists. So because they said to take care of a person, you need all that knowledge. It's not only a doctor or not only a psychiatrist. We need people who are able to take care of the body, the creativity, all the possible help or connection that the transfer, if you want to use the term, that person can take. So Toscaès was a refugee in France, and like a good refugee in France, he was put in a camp during the Spanish War. And so finally in 1940, he could work in an asylum, but as a nurse. So he had to train back because his diploma was not recognized as a psychiatrist. So he worked for a place called Saint-Alban. And Saint-Alban, you might have known it because Frantz Fanon went to work there, to be trained and try to export institutional psychotherapy in Algeria. And so in Saint-Alban, what was really special is like Toscaès, they based one of the principles is Lacan, so to use psychoanalysis in a psychiatric space, but also Hermann Simon, who is a psychiatrist from Germany. It's complicated to read. Hermann Simon is especially the text from 1929, and the idea was really that the cure should pass by work. So instead of letting people in their room and enclosed in the quarter, to make people to work together, to build a house, to take care of the gardens, together with also the hospital team. So to create a respect and collaboration in between the people being together at the space that was the asylum. What was a bit, I will close the parenthesis, dubious for me to read is that this idea of work, and also Hermann Simon made a special thing that it's not about being creative and being crazy. You know, you cannot do crazy stuff. You have to work, and it's also really gender-based. You know, women in the kitchen, men in the garden. So it's funny because in the text on institutional psychotherapy that I'm reading, there was no critique about Hermann Simon. Meanwhile, you can really, but no one is perfect. But the idea was really that people should be together working also passing time. But also, for example, he broke the walls of the asylum literally, that the people could work in the village and the village could come to a space. And it's one of the rare places that the people didn't die from hunger during the war because they were able to take care of themselves. Because this idea, I don't remember if it's Uri or Toscaès, if you're enclosed with crazy people all the day, it is no surprise that you take yourself for crazy. You know, the fact that the people with the same pathology was enclosed together in rooms, and they opened this room so people could wander together. So
I just say one sentence in the middle. In relation to what you just mentioned also, I mean, it's this question of why is it not possible, or, I mean, of course we know why it's not possible in capitalism, that there is any work that would be not alienated, yeah? We all know our work is like alienated all the time when we do it, even if we enjoy it. But I can say there was less alienation in this institution, at least with the people I had the chance to work, than I have ever seen before. So this means I was on a residence in the place for 1 week. I came in the morning, and we worked together until the evening. We had lunch, but in every moment when we worked together, I had the feeling that people do what they believe makes sense. They do it with the means that they think makes sense for it, and they have their day based on that. And never before in an institution I have experienced something like that before. So for me, this is really special, and actually this was more special for me than the project with the archive in relation to the difference of an understanding of an institution, and also as a base of hospitality, because it makes a complete difference if I welcome someone in an institution that is not alienating me. So if I'm not, because the hostess, the classical hostess or the stewardess in the airplane, she's not welcoming anyone, and we know it. She's saying something that she doesn't mean. She just learned it. That's why she says it. So
yeah, but this is why I was mentioning Irina, because there is this sense of home, and you're right that, for example, the team that was working on the archive, they have. It's true that. Because this is something that because the fact that you say it's not less alienation, this is what is about institutional psychotherapy, because it said that it work on two legs, Marxism and psychoanalysis, because we are alienated socially and mentally. So it was not only to work on the mental, but to work also on the context of life. And also, this was the end of my talk, but then it's done. Guattari, because Guattari went to work with Uri, that was educated by Toscaïès, and then they collaborate later. So when they ask him in La Porte, what are you bringing to people? And say, it's not about what we bring, it's about to be less toxic as possible. So to work on the lack of the less toxicity possible inside an institution. It's true that now I'm working on this, that in the Fondation, it is true that what's special about the project of the archive, that we're working together, the people of the archive, education and communication and curators. So it's I don't know your experience with the institution, but normally those departments, they don't even talk to each other. Or, I mean, I can tell you now, because I'm doing a project with a big institution, I can tell you that to make education speak with the curators, this is something it takes, I don't know. But we cannot say that publicly, but now I have the proof and the emails for the next time. So it's, so you're right, that was this idea that also the fact that the archive was open, that they could have access as any position of the institution to the, how do we work? So there was no separation about the knowledge somehow, and also the fact that this special, I mean, the archive was a way, somehow the place where it was really possible to work collaboratively. What surprised me is the fact that they didn't demand this going, I mean, to work the same way after that. So what I try is that to say, is it possible to work with, as companionship, the writing and the readings of Toscaïès, Uri, Guattari on institutional psychotherapy? Can be this part of my toolbox to work within the institution, so to be able to construct this collective, and a collective is not a group of people. And also a collective should maintain the heterogeneity, the singularities, and every one of us is an institution. So this idea of how do we work together without being the same. And this is the radio that's working now in the school. So the idea is really that you have to maintain the heterogeneity of possibility, and also the idea of collaboration, to work collectively, is a lot debated in the school, because collectivity and collaboration is heavy. I mean, we have to make meetings and to discuss. And so, and the basic principle of a school is there is no equality, because the status of the people are different. Some teachers are tenured, some people are, teachers are assistants, some of them are lecturers. So the contracts are different, and you cannot come with as a fairy godmother and change everything and say we're all equal. We are not equal. Some people are paying, some people are being paid. So this idea, we talk a lot about this because it's demanding to decide collectively, collaboratively on the cafeteria, on the gallery, on the distribution space, the schedules. I mean, it's great, but it's tiring. So how does it work? Also, some students from Holland were talking about a place in a school where they have this ideal place of education where they could decide together the content of their class. And I mean, they talk about a really collaborative and collective work. Meanwhile, some of them who were coming from Brazil, the collaboration were going to, they have to find the money to pay the janitor, they have to clean the school. I mean, this was a collaborative, doing the school together, but at the point that they were not having time anymore for their own project, which is some of the students are really happy what's happening, but they don't have time for their project anymore because they are busy making the school together. So when I was talking to the people of Holland, I said, but what would you know about the secretary or the ideal school was the fact that the institution would disappear. So you don't know how it works. I don't want to know about the budget, thank you, or the schedule of the person who clean. Let me in peace with that. I want to do my work collaboratively in a group, but I don't know. So the fact that working of the care of the institution, the care of the people, make, again, this really tangible and physical and tiring. But so I don't know. We keep you positive. So we'll see how it works because, as I said, at my level of the structure, I bring the people in. Also with the students, they are really. Some of them are really willing to learn. I mean, the radio program they maintained it during 36 hours. I will tell you about that. But so some of them will be leaving because they want to studying cultural management because they have learned about how to make a budget because they have their own budget, they have their own space. Of course, so the balance between the experimentation, the collaboration, the protection that the institution can give, because the experimentation should be really high, the risk really high, but I'm there. I mean, how they consider me, Uri would say that there is a different place, the position, the role, and the function. I mean, I can have the function of a director as a student, and my role will be the good one or the bad one, that depends how they see me. But my position, I'm paid, and on paper, I'm the director. So this kind of, and we talk together about this, how we can sense, because some moment I have meeting where I just, this is difficult because I cannot just disappear. I mean, I cannot become one of them, but we can be together at some moment, no? Discuss the school. So this is something that, so this is the print lab that is built, because the idea was also building together space of transfer of knowledge, but they build physically students, teachers, and administration together. But also, this is something we can come back to this idea of temporality, because by default the students are passing by, so the temporality of the work is different, and some teachers will be there forever, and the director is punctually. So the different temporality of work and projection is also. And now we encounter some problem because they built a Super 8 lab, great, but they are leaving. So how do we do about this thing? When we talk about radical hospitality, as you know by Derrida, that radical hospitality is to give the keys of the house. So you're not the master anymore. And if you're not the master anymore, so you cannot be hospitable anymore because this is not yours. So the question of property. So someone told me, yes, but you can give away your privilege because you have privilege. So this is a privileged position to say we are going to work collaboratively and collectively from now on. maybe it's not bad, but so this idea of the position that it's a privileged position, and so and also not to create the sense of indebtedness toward the people who are happily collaboratively working on the schools.
Is it a matter of privilege, or should I come back to it, or is it not more a matter of exploitation? I mean, because we in somehow shifted now our focus from exploitation to privilege, but more interesting would be, where is the surplus value of our exploitation and how can we collectivize it? And instead of a discourse of, bad conscience, my privilege, your privilege, what are we doing with, I mean, again here, there is a certain amount of privilege, a certain amount of tools, let's collectivize them.
Oh, but this is, yeah, you're right. So it's just that I'm occupied by this, but it's not a bad conscience. It's really to be careful in the care that what you put in place, what you demand, what is your position. Also, I have to say that I'm working. So because I've put those principles on the table, I try to work with that. I'm working with a psychologist. So we discuss this kind of question that I could have about bad conscience. So, so I really try to put that all the time on the table. But you're right. It's like, okay, this is the decision I've taken. It's based on certain analysis of institution possibilities. Let's work together, but not being blind to what is in play here for not only even physically for me, because it's kind of complicated, but it's so yeah. This is not about bad conscience. It's bad conscience on to be not to lose tracks of what am I doing here, what I'm doing that. So it's about following the vibration of the water, and yeah, it's about that's not bad.
Regarding opening the archive, did it change how you subsequently archive things? Did you archive more, or I don't know?
Yeah, I mean, it should have, it should have influenced. But the idea was that the fact that it was not concentrated only on the desk or under the desk of the one person, but it has to become something that can be used. That changed the way it's archived. Yes.
But also the new things that were then archived.
Yeah. But then I'm sure not anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, for really changing, then you have it takes to modify some routines and habits. It takes an authority to say from now on we work like this, or it takes it's an organic work somehow.
But isn't it difficult to convince people? Because if you say we work collaboratively, then for some it must be to give something of their power and of their status to the others who don't have it. So how difficult was that for you to impose this idea?
So what I did is every time we open a working group, and we call for everyone. And of course there are 90 teachers and 400 students, and sometimes we have working group of 10 people. It's changing because also they want, I guess, to see the result between saying and doing, no? And recently we opened the school 36 hours, days and night, and what we did was to open a pad online, and people, when I say people, teachers and students put all the projects, and we worked together with teachers and students to organize the space, and the space was given to someone who was responsible for that space, and all the projects together, all mixed. No hierarchy of, and I will also explain the exhibition we did regarding those principles. So, and it worked. I mean, it's interesting also to go to because I have to go to that extreme, to be like day and night on. I mean, some of us were there day and night, but it transformed. And also the trust that you can have with each other, going through that that moment, and also the fact that we trust that the students, other teachers can do stuff. It's So, yes, some of them, I guess. I mean, in the Fondation, it was more vivid than in the school. Also, because in the school there is this temporality and movement that also different when you have people working full time in one place. So this is also what I'm saying, that it's not so easy, but because we're back on track, no, back on our position, or sometimes you are transformed. And so for the school, what I when I answered the call for the director, so it was it was on. I mean, it was written on the paper. I mean, they didn't know what will happen exactly, but I didn't hide the fact that I cannot work other way. Yeah.
I'm wondering, in how does it change, maybe, or does not change your perspective on an institution between the Fondation Tapies and the art school now, in relation to that your customers in the Fondation was museum visitors, and now it's students, and one could imagine that maybe the visitors would be non-experts in art and the students would be experts in a way, but maybe also the other way around, that both are very similar, that they have a very own understanding of art, which is maybe not in a canon with what an official institution sometimes teaches. Like, was it very different for you to have customers and art students? Or?
It never crossed my mind, the fact, because I can tell you there are students who are not at all expert in art and visitors who are really hardcore on this. So the fact of, for example, in the Fondation, this is something we can talk tomorrow. We worked a lot about the body, I mean, and also the body of the visitor, because you cannot escape the body. So, but the body in the sense that the memory, I mean, someone seeing something, the way that she analyzes or see is because of her background, of her memory, of her knowledge. So, for me, you cannot do without someone being there. And so with Xavier Leroy, it was at the point that people were encountering the performance, and there is nothing here. But I'm here. Yeah, but there is nothing here. But I'm here. I'm talking to you. So my idea is really to make that it's happening all the time in the museum. The painting is there. And you're talking with, I mean, you're creating that space. So the thing for me is really the time, the temporality of to work with a visitor, with someone who's come and go, and you can let in peace. Or in the school that by default some of the students will be 3 or 5 years. The teachers are, as I say, it's again, I propose a way of working, but it's their decision if we direct the school together in that direction. This is why I told the students, the team, I'm the director, but we are the direction. We directed that boat somewhere. And we have different positions in that boat, but we go somewhere. But the fundamental people are the people who are there. I mean, I'm there, but temporarily. I don't know. So this, meanwhile, this is why also it was a way to open the archive to make people interact, as I say, enter in conversation with the institution. The people outside also the institution, not only the people who pay and enter and visit, or the people who are working, but from the outside, that they should reclaim the institution as them, or at least in a dialogue with them. So.
Yeah, I think in the moment when we in somehow make the logic of representation more porous, we have on the one hand, okay, we will encounter bodies and possibilities to act, but we will also be confronted with the possibility of thinking the structure differently. Mm-hmm. And if we are not, then we are just talking, mm-hmm. not doing. Mm-hmm. And this is what actually was very important for me to emphasize. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what you have always done and will always do. And this is wonderful. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to work with you tomorrow.
Thank you.